Welcome to the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny and the founder of Catani Capital Group. For the last 2 years, I've been studying alternative assets and now help solve the problem of creating passive cash flow for creators, influencers, and busy professionals by bringing you 5 episodes a week of easy to understand education in the world of passive investing. What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of the Cash Flow Chronicles. I'm your host, Jonny Catani. And guess what? Another solo episode today. Very excited. Bit of an oversight, but all good. We're playing right through it. Unfortunately, was not able to get an episode recorded in time. Had a couple people need to reschedule, which it happens. I have slowed down the volume of recordings that I'm doing so that I don't make the same mistake as last time and get pushed or have too many episodes and then episodes come out a lot later than ever recorded. So it's all good. Gives me another opportunity to work on non-Friday follow-up solo episodes. So this one will be current events. So some of you may have seen, I know if you listen, I have mentioned that, I think the Wall Street Journal is one of the better. I mean, I realize everybody probably has their preferences. There's certainly some you should stay away from, but the Wall Street Journal is a really great resource for financial news. And so I typically will read it every day. And today, so recording this on Monday, and today there was an article how the World Bank warns of a lost decade for global economy. So wanted to break this article down. It's certainly interesting. Now, the thing to remember is the Wall Street Journal is still media, right? And so they are going to, use certain tactics, right, to kind of create that headline, that eye-catching headline. And this one certainly does it. I mean, warns of a lost decade for global economy. So, it's something to pay attention to, and it's a good point. But let me first kind of break it down. So what is the World Bank? Well, the World Bank is basically a collection. I believe it's about 180-ish countries combined. And essentially what they do is they give loans and credits and different opportunities to developing countries. So they're basically a bank for, countries to go to for struggling companies. Everything from food, water, education, shelter, all the things that developing countries need. So of course, they're very involved in global economics. And so what they do is they track the global economy, and every year they'll give in fact, I believe in January, I'll have to figure out which episode it was, but in January, I gave their projections so at the end of December, they projected that the global economy was going to grow like, I can't, off the top of my head, I think it was like 2.4%, 2.2, somewhere in there. And then in January came out and revised that and said it was only going to be like 1.7% this year, or, it might have even been worse, like 0.8. I know that sounds dramatic, but I think that's what it was. Gosh, I should look that up. But so they give kind of their outlook. And so essentially what this article is they are warning of a lost decade. What does that mean? Well, what it means is between the pandemic that we just had, inflation is rampant across the globe. And then we've got the war in Ukraine happening. So all of those things together are, creating some serious challenges, right? Because the whole world is having to change what they're doing, which means, resources and focus and energy goes toward wars and the pandemic and fighting inflation, as opposed to like, growth and investing and the things that, push the global economy up. So their biggest factor that they're talking about and I've mentioned this, is China's population is about to have. So basically, because of all the regulations that they had in place over, basically how many children could be born, there weren't a lot of children born. And so now, once this like older workforce leaves, and retires, passes away, whatever it may be, there's not a huge group to step up. And obviously, it's a massive, I mean, China's population is in the billions. And so they're going to be in trouble. And so it's, and a small tangent, if you've noticed that China is pushing to get the global oil trade on the yen, but ultimately because they're going to have this population issue, I would find it very hard to believe that they can really push to essentially control the number one commodity on their currency. I would be surprised if it happens. If it did, it would only be a short while, because now they are saying that it could potentially happen in the US as well, but I don't believe that. I do realize that, less and less children are being born. I mean, millennials aren't having kids. I'm 32. I don't have any kids. Very, very common. None of my close friends have them, are even thinking about them. So, it's obvious that it will potentially be an issue. However, the US is just a different economy than China, right? China is a communist. And so so that's very different in how that's structured. I'm not even going to try to explain it in depth. Let's see. Okay, yeah, it's a one-party authoritarian. Okay, People's Republic of China. Okay, the Chinese Communist Party. Okay, exactly. So that's basically right. So it's set up different, right? You don't have as much. You don't have any free speech and kind of all of the things that, and kind of this. Well, we don't really have a free market system, but this capitalist system that we have that allows for the privatizing of businesses and can still stimulate growth, and is not as reliant on this like massive workforce like China is, right? Which is why a lot of things are made in China. But you look at things like the minimum wage in China has increased like $7 and something, I believe, the last time I saw the data on it, and Mexico's is like 520. So that's part of like kind of the reshoring that we're doing here in the US, moving things over there. It's going to take time, but you look even 5-10 years down the road, when a significant portion of that has been moved away from China, not to mention the workforce and everything, it's hard to believe that they're really going to be able to take over as a world superpower. But who knows what can happen. I also never thought we'd have a world pandemic over a virus like COVID-19, but alas, I digress. So what they are basically projecting, back to the World Bank here, is that from let's see, basically 2022 to 2030, so for the next 8 years, it's going to shrink from 2.6% and to 2.2%. So a 0.4% drop in global growth over the next 8 years. So it doesn't sound very significant, but you got to put it into relative terms. You're talking about the entire world, right? So, even if you just did it based on population, and you weren't even talking about money, right? You just did it on population, which is 7 billion, which is what, 9 zeros? and then we multiply that by 0.4, and you get 280 million. Let's see. Yeah, 280 million. So that's a significant, like, that's a significant chunk of change right there, right? Monetarily, however you want to put that. And so, that's a significant, and you got to remember that's trending downwards, right? So that means that there is not going to be economic growth like we've seen over the last, 8 years. Let's see, from 2000 to 2010, it was 3.5% on average. So, it's definitely something to keep an eye on. Now, other economists are coming out and saying that it's a bit dramatic. They're being a bit pessimistic. But again, their big thing is this, as the populations, other things like restrictive trade measures, tariffs, you look at things that are happening in like France, right, where they are the entire like city infrastructure in Paris is on strike. Well, a lot of France is on strike because they are changing the retirement age from 62 to 64. And so it's obviously, I mean, the French know how to riot, and they're absolutely rioting. I mean, there's something like 6 million tons of trash on the side of the streets because the city workers and garbage men are on strike, and it's crazy. So, you know, the main areas where you're going to see it happen is in Asia, right? Like I was saying with China, and that's a significant, I mean, portion obviously of the global population. So it's something certainly to keep an eye on. Again, whenever you're reading news, albeit even if there is data, just remember to keep an open mind. They still need to get readers and things like that. So it is a very informative article, but obviously a very dramatic headline. And so you see other economists coming out and saying, not, it's not quite as doomsday as it sounds, but the point I want to basically end with is when you hear this, right, it's important to know that over all of those times, even when the slowing over the last decade, people still made money, right? Investments still worked. There's still opportunity. So this is not a doomsday, like, take all your cash and hide it under your mattress. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. I'm saying there are still going to be opportunities. It's just that in 10 years from now, the world's going to look a lot different, which, shocker, looked a lot different 10 years ago. So not really that surprised about it. So anyway, I hope that was a help, you guys. I appreciate it as always. Don't forget to follow me on social media at Jonny Cattani, Jonny with no H. It's always a pleasure to come on and do a solo episode. Lots more to come. Reach out if you have any questions, and I will talk to you guys later. See ya. Thank you again for tuning in. Who do you know that wants more cash flow? Share this episode with them so you can grow your cash flow together. If you enjoyed the show, make sure you're subscribed on your platform of choice so you never miss a new episode. Go to CattaniCapitalGroup.com to learn more.